All right, let's get to it because we got lots to run down. Ian Castleberry joining the Wise Guys, Barrett Sports Media, and of course, it's going to be a little hybrid today. We, of course, on Thursdays have Ian for our NFL Gold Nuggets feature. We got lots to get to there, but boy, do we have some things to talk about with Major League Baseball's Hall of Fame, including one new inductee, but I think the bigger story is that the trio that did not get in, and Ian's appearance talking all of this is presented by David Kreisman, DC Kreisman Jewelers. Ian, so good to have you with us, and man, what a rundown we got today.
Yeah, nothing to talk about, huh?
Yeah, I know. Hopefully we can just try and kill 20 minutes if we can. But let's start first, before we get to our NFL Gold Nuggets, got to get your opinion on Bonds, Clemens, and Schilling being shut out by the Hall of Fame voters. And Ian, was there any hope riders would have a change of heart in the trio's final year of eligibility?
I don't think so. Bonds and Clemens were just over 61% going into their final year on the ballot. There was an increase. Bonds was 66% of the vote. Roger Clemens, 65%. So I think this is one instance where, it used to be that players were eligible or on the Hall of Fame ballot for 15 years, not 10. If they were on 15 years, I think Bonds and Clemens would have gotten in. Now, maybe the writers would have dragged this out until that 15th year, but I think with another 5 years, I think that Bonds and Clemens would have made up that ground. There's many who think that this is part of the reason why eligibility was shortened by 5 years, was to deal with or avoid baseball's steroid era.
Boy, Demp, let me ask you this question. If you're a writer and you've got to vote, would you be voting? Would they get your vote or not?
It's tough. It's tough, but those are some big names, and I'd have a hard time. Especially with Bonds and Clemens.
For me, too, and here is why. I mean, and people already, you're hearing it now, like it's a travesty Bonds is not in the Hall of Fame. No, it's not. He took steroids, and then he said, oops, I didn't know it was steroids. I mean, come on. Again, read the book Game of Shadows, which I did. It paints a damning picture of Barry Bonds. His trainer went to jail for him. Guys like Bonds, Clemens, they're self-centered. They'll roll whoever they have to do, like Clemens' trainer, under the bus. Remember Brian McNamee? Yeah. I mean, to me, Ian, I don't buy that argument. They basically broke one of baseball's golden rules. But here's the issue, too. People argue, well, there's some people that did steroids that are in the Hall of Fame. We're always going to have that issue. But these guys were out in the forefront. Clemens was never, he was accused of it, but never, if you will, convicted of taking steroids, and still denies it to this day. But you can look at both these guys in the mid-'90s, and then when they retired, and realize something else went into their body that made them huge.
Yeah, first of all, if I voted, I would vote for Bonds and Clemens, because I think they were Hall of Famers even before they began taking steroids and increased their numbers and prolong their careers. The purpose of the Hall of Fame versus its practical use, I think that's where some of the conflict arises here. I mean, because yes, the Hall of Fame, you're supposed to say the best of the sport, who represented what the game is at its best. Yet, the Hall of Fame itself is a museum. It's a chronicle of baseball. So, if you don't know anything about baseball, you'd say, hey, I'd go to Cooperstown to learn about the game. Well, okay, the game's all-time home run leader isn't mentioned there or isn't. Maybe there is a display, but there's no plaque. I haven't been to Cooperstown. I don't know. And then you have the situation with Pete Rose, where Pete Rose, the all-time hits leader, isn't represented in Cooperstown either. So what is the purpose of the Hall of Fame would be one of my questions. But I still think Bonds and Clemens were among the best at their position, the best players in baseball while they played. And to me, that is the first criteria for voting for somebody to go into the Hall of Fame.
I mean, to me, then, why not? Why have rules? I mean, why bother with it? I mean, Rose, he broke definitely the golden rule. He betted on baseball, then denied it for 2 decades. So if maybe just get rid of all the rules and say this is, because I feel, Ian, and I want to get your thoughts. I feel like the writers, some of them take this very personally. This is more of a personal vote than a Hall of Fame vote.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think there are some voters who make it about themselves, certainly. You hear these cases of people turning in blank ballots, or just, I forget who it was, somebody just turned in a ballot with only Jeff Kent. Like, are you kidding, really? I mean, I think Jeff Kent should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way. I would vote for him as well. But of all the players that are currently on the ballot, I think it's more than 30 players. So, to make these personal statements, I don't think it is the way to go with a Hall of Fame ballot either.
We'll see where it goes, but those boys have been shut out. Big Papi, by the way, David Ortiz, who I think was named in the Mitchell Report back in the day, was inducted in the.
It is interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting that claim hasn't stuck to him or didn't stick to him, didn't cost him. But there have been some investigations or some studies that said that the people that were named in the Mitchell Report, that the methods or what was being tested on wasn't what baseball players are getting tested for now. Rob Manfred has even said that he didn't think that David Ortiz should have been named in that report. But it is interesting that voters didn't hold that against David Ortiz the way they held it against, say, Mike Piazza or Craig Biggio. I personally feel voters are holding it against Gary Sheffield now. Gary Sheffield got 40% of the vote. I absolutely think Gary Sheffield is a Hall of Famer. I would vote for him. He was only ninth among those receiving votes, which I don't understand that at all. I think Sheffield was one of the best hitters in baseball during his career.
Yeah, then I guess, baseball, the Hall of Fame's got to get it, figure out what the criteria truly is going to be, and are they going to put an emphasis on if they do this, or this, then go this route. But it seems like it's just kind of wide open, and the voters can kind of vote the way they feel. And again, I think for some it gets personal. They don't like Bonds, they don't like Clemens, they don't like Pete Rose, and they vote that way. Boy,
can I say one more?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I say one more thing about the Hall of Fame? We are going to reach a very dark period, not in terms of who gets in, but like next year, there might not be anybody elected to the Hall of Fame. Even the year after that, we might be. I mean, unless Scott Rowland, he had 63% of the vote. If he makes a big jump, Todd Helton, Billy Wagner got over 50%. I mean, you look at who the first timers are going to be on next year's ballot, and there's nobody that is a lock. I mean, I don't know how many, like Carlos Beltran, John Lackey, Matt Cain, Jacoby Ellsbury. I mean, all good players, right? But, if you're saying Hall of Fame is the best of the best, the true greats, there's nobody on next year's ballot as a first-timer that is going to be elected.
Yeah, I agree. Just those names alone. I mean, they were really good players. You don't want to take that away, but Hall of Fame worthy, I'm not sure there. As Ian Castleberry joins the Wise Guys on the DC Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines, we'll now get into our NFL Gold Nuggets, presented by David and the staff at 269 Tonal Road, your one-stop jewelry shop. All right, and Sean Payton steps away as Saints coach, so immediately we're all like, ooh, Dallas, he lives in the Dallas area. We're not sure what the status of Mike McCarthy is going to be, maybe past this coming season, but it just seems to me like that would be a perfect fit whenever Mike McCarthy is let go. And if Dallas doesn't pick it up, that's probably going to happen. You got to think Sean Payton's a guy in Dallas because Jerry's got a big-time man crush on Payton.
Yeah, Payton does have a history with the Cowboys. He was quarterback's coach, assistant head coach, I believe for 3 years under Bill Parcells. As you said, Payton lives in the Dallas area. The Cowboys could have a need at head coach. But, I watched Sean Payton's press conference this week, and he sounds like a guy who wants to take a year off from coaching. That maybe he's just a little bit burned out, really tired. I don't know if he wants to jump right into coaching. And at Barrett Sports Media, we've been looking at the fact that Sean Payton is very much in demand as a potential broadcaster. And Payton said during his press conference, he thinks he would like to try TV. Now, what job he gets or how big a job he gets in broadcasting, it has yet to be determined. There are rumors that Fox might want to replace Troy Aikman with Sean Payton if Troy Aikman ends up going to Amazon to call Thursday Night Football. Others say that Sean Payton, might be viewed as a studio analyst for Fox. Maybe he replaces Jimmy Johnson. What about Monday Night Football? If ESPN decides they want to blow up that booth, would Sean Payton be the big color commentator that would be paired with the play-by-play man? But those jobs, I don't think that Sean Payton's going to get those jobs if he's only going to have them for 1 year. So I think if Sean Payton does indeed want to take a year off, I think you probably would see him in a studio or something. Yeah. And then, maybe Jerry Jones takes one more run with Mike McCarthy, and then if that doesn't work out, both sides are ready to go.
Yeah, because to me, Jerry Jones will be like, to the Saints, because they would have to give them compensation. You know what? I'll give you the entire city of Fort Worth. I don't own it yet, but we'll make it happen, whatever it takes. But Dem, Sean Payton, as a broadcaster, you were kind of like, you had an expression when to replace Troy Aikman on that.
I'm not a huge Aikman fan, so,
you would like that.
Anybody would be a replacement.
Really? I like Aikman. I mean, isn't it interesting that the two number one broadcasters are two former Dallas Cowboy quarterbacks? That's interesting. Tony Romo's phenomenal. And Aikman's really good, too, on that. But, Sean Payton, I mean, who knows?
I think Sean would be awesome. He's got good charisma, and he's got good knowledge, and I think people would love to watch him.
Plus, he's your guy when you do a bounty hunter segment, and do the bounty. So he would be perfect for that.
And I think, though, but I think you're right. I think timing's not right for the Cowboys. And Jerry's got to have one more year, and then Jerry's man crush comes in.
I think it's happening in a year.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
And unless Cowboys do make the playoffs and get a run in the playoffs, other than that, I think if they don't make a deep run, it could be curtains for McCarthy.
Maybe Jerry ought to move on, because it seems to be he's the problem.
When it comes to the football end, absolutely. There are folks that'll tell you there's a lot of dysfunction going on in that organization, and a lot of it is Jerry. If you saw Hard Knocks, right, Ian? It's like Jerry Jones was in on everything.
Yeah, he's the ultimate interfering owner, right? I mean, he really thinks he's a football guy. He owns the team. He can do whatever he wants. But, I mean, if they really did bring in a true football guy, I mean, they tried that with Bill Parcells, right? But, I mean, I don't know. That didn't last that long, probably because of Jerry Jones wanting to make the call on personnel and everything. But, yeah, I mean, I agree with them. But Jerry's certainly not going to sell the team. But maybe someone can convince him, maybe just stay in the owner's box.
Yeah, please, stay in your lane, Jerry. As Ian Castleberry joins the Wise Guys, presented by D.C. Creasman Jewelers. So Packers, wait a minute, before we get to Nathaniel Hackett, Big Ben makes it official. He is certainly retired, a first ballot Hall of Famer. And Ian, what do you think Big Ben's legacy will be that we can now look back on his career?
I think you have to look at him as one of the all-time great quarterbacks. I mean, fifth most passing yards in NFL history, over 64,000. Granted, the game has changed significantly, favoring the pass, with 18 seasons with one team. We don't see that anymore. He won 2 Super Bowls, which is the big measure for quarterbacks. He holds 3 Steelers records in passing, most passing yards, most touchdowns, most completions in team history. He won 67% of his regular season games. So I think you do have to look at him as one of the greats. Certainly an entire generation, if not more, knows only Ben Roethlisberger as the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, you do have to mention the darker side, or the unseemly side of Roethlisberger when you're talking about his entire career, I think, in that, the sexual assault charges that he faced twice. He was suspended for 4 games in 2010. That shouldn't define his career, but I think as we're lauding him, it should certainly be mentioned. It has to be at least a note in any celebration of Ben Roethlisberger, I think.
Indeed, and you're not the first one to bring that up, but very few are bringing that up. And don't forget the motorcycle accident either that he had in the offseason close to training camp back in, I think, 2006. He was pretty reckless, back in those days. And those were incredibly strong life lessons that I think Roethlisberger has taken to heart. We'll wait and see, obviously, but you haven't heard anything on him since then. And I know he's tried to do all he can to rehab it, but still, though, at the very least, you can't let that slide. And people have to understand that this is also a little part of Ben Roethlisberger as well. But on the field, there was very few quarterbacks that scared the crap out of defenses and fans playing the Steelers when there was 2 minutes to go in a game and Pittsburgh was down by 2 points and you had Roethlisberger in the ball at the 25. He just kind of put that fear into people. All right, so here we go, guys. Packers offense coordinator Nathaniel Hackett, the new coach of the Broncos. All right, guys, and immediately, right, we're thinking, let's get A-Rod into Denver. Hard to think that would be the only reason Hackett was hired by the Broncos. But what factors do you think Ian played into Denver acting quickly to get Hackett signed? Because he was ready to interview with the Jaguars, and they said Bills. No, and the Bills. And they basically said, nah, and the Broncos made it happen.
Yeah, I think the Broncos tried to beat the Jaguars. He was scheduled to interview with the Jaguars. He was an offensive coordinator there previously. And I think, the possibility of going to Jacksonville, working with Trevor Lawrence, really building a team from the bottom. Urban Meyer wasn't able to do it, but that was the promise when Urban Meyer took that job, right? And he flamed out. And I think Nathaniel Hackett faces the same possibility, and it could be even better because Lawrence has a full season on his resume now. He got those rookie mistakes, hopefully, out of his system. So I think the Broncos had some urgency here to get Nathaniel Hackett before the Jaguars could talk to him. And I think the Broncos have emphasized defensive coaches recently, Vic Fangio, Vance Joseph. I think it was natural to assume that they were going to go the other way and hire an offensive coach. And they've been very successful, or I should say Hackett has been very successful as an offensive coordinator. The question will be how much of it was Aaron Rodgers and how much of it was Hackett's philosophy. We may, if the Rodgers goes to the Broncos, and there's some people saying Devontae Adams could go with him too, then maybe we won't have to wonder about that because Hackett will have his guy there in Denver. But it's also a possibility that he could really improve Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock, and the Broncos offense to go with what's been an outstanding defense.
Hey, Demp, what's your feel on that? Obviously, the Broncos really are the top team for Rodgers to go to before the hiring of his offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, where do you want to finish, though? And he's going to want to finish on top. So that's the main thing. But I think that's all the rumors right here as I sit here and check everything out right now.
You know what? I still think Aaron may stay in Green Bay. I'm still going with that. But this is intriguing for sure. Remember, the Packers, they have to trade him. I think he has one more year left on the contract, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So, will he finish that out in Green Bay or force a trade? I mean, regardless, I don't think either Green Bay or certainly Aaron Rodgers wants to go through the same sort of offseason that they did last year.
Yeah, and if they don't have Devontae Adams, I think, that's, a lot depends on Aaron hanging in Green Bay. He's put it out there. He's walked the plank, but he's come back on the boat. Could this be different this offseason? Well, it remains to be seen. As Ian Castleberry joins the Wise Guys with Barrett Sports Media, and, of course, here every week talking baseball and our NFL Gold Nuggets, presented by David Kreisman and DC Kreisman Jewelers. Hey, did you hear the Fox top of the hour sports update about Byron Leftwich saying to Shad Khan, Jaguars owner, yeah, man, I'll come and be the head coach for your team, but you got to get rid of the general manager. And it looks like Shad Khan just got rid of his general manager.
Oh, has that happened now? I mean, Trent Baalke.
Yes.
If Byron Leftwich was the guy you wanted and the GM was the hang-up, and maybe that's one reason why guys like Nathaniel Hackett and Matt Eberflus didn't interview with Jacksonville either. They took, Eberflus just took the Bears job before he was supposed to interview with the Jaguars. We mentioned Nathaniel Hackett taking the Broncos job before he was supposed to interview with the Jaguars. Trent Baalke, I think you got to look at the record with, when he was the general manager in San Francisco, he drove Jim Harbaugh out of town, and look at how that's gone. The 49ers nosedive after Harbaugh left. He hasn't done a very good, Baalke hasn't done a very good job with the Jaguars. So I think Shad Khan made the right call there.
All right, we got just about 90 seconds, guys. Here we go. Ian, your AFC championship pick, Bengals or Chiefs?
Chiefs. Are the Bengals going to stop that Chiefs offense? If the Bills couldn't, how are the Bengals going to?
There you go. Boy, look at that. Boom, boom. Snappy, right to the point. San Francisco and the Rams, NFC championship. Who do you like?
I think this will be closer, but, San Francisco is going to keep it close with their running game, but I think the Rams being at home, weather's not going to be a factor as it was for the Niners against the Packers. As we talked about on Monday, I do have a soft spot for Matthew Stafford. I want him to make the Super Bowl, but I do think they have too much for the 49ers defense.
All right, there we go. How about you there, Demp? Who do you like?
I'm going right there with him.
You got the Chiefs and the Rams?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks that way, too. For me, we do our picks tomorrow.
I mean, the Chiefs didn't go through everything they did not to get there, and, the Rams. Yeah. Rams, it's going to be a good one. And won't the Rams play at home if they win?
Yeah, they'll be at SoFi.
So, they get home field advantage again.
Yeah.
So.
That would be, and Ian, I'm trying to think, has that ever happened before? I don't think that's happened.
It's never happened with a team playing at home for the conference championship and the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Tampa Bay last year played the Super Bowl at home, which was the first time that happened.
That's right. Okay, that's right. Jeez, it was only a year ago. I'm like, when's that happen? About 340 days ago, Pat. All right, well, good luck to both teams. Ian Castleberry writes for Barrett Sports Media, also content editor. That's his big gig right there with this great outlet. And Ian, I hope week 2 is going well. And again, real happy that you've connected with that real fine organization.
Yeah, the game's slowing down for me, so to speak. So, yeah, week 2 has gone better, for sure.
All right, buddy. Well, we can't thank you enough.
Outstanding. All right, enjoy the rest of your week. Great talking to you, Dan.
Good to talk to you, Ian.
See you, buddy. Ian Castleberry with the Wise Guys.